Welcome back, listener. How are you? I'm glad you're having a good week and all of that. This is Aaron Richmond. Of course, you're listening to Aaron's Opinion, the podcast for blind people where we talk about critical issues in the blindness community. This podcast can be heard almost everywhere you get a podcast, from Apple to Spreaker to Spotify, you name it, we're probably there, along with YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, you can follow us on Patreon. By the way, I just like to say before we go any further that this podcast and this episode, by the way, is of course copywritten by Aaron Richmond and Aaron's Opinion. Thank you for that. Tonight, we are joined by someone new to Aaron's Opinion, someone who I just actually met this person a couple days ago by guesting on their podcast. His name is Mark Kumar. And you out there in the audience, especially if you're blind, you might be wondering, well, what is podcast hosting? What is a hosting company? And by the way, how do people start podcasts? Well, as a matter of fact, Mark Kumar is the founder of Simple Podcast Cloud. He joins us now to tell you, listener, everything you need to know about Simple Podcast Cloud. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and talk to you and help your audiences out. I'm so flattered to have you be on your show.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So, one of the things that I was wondering when you were interviewing me on your show, which I admit I started to interview you on your show a bit, but but one of the questions that I had that I didn't really have a chance to ask is, so Mark, what was your motivation in creating this hosting company? First of all, for anyone out there in the audience, why don't you please start by explaining to them what a podcast hosting company is, and then what yours is, and how it all works, and just sort of go from, I guess, ground upwards.
Sure, absolutely. For those of you who may be considering opening or starting their own podcast show, the way that it works in the podcasting world is you can record the content on your own, and then you need a hosting company. That way, what that hosting company does, it works as a middleman, if you will, and then that middleman will allow the other podcast directories like your Apples, Google Podcasts, iTunes, Speaker, and everywhere. I mean, not Speaker, but other ones out there. And then whenever there's a new update, your hosting company will tell Apple Podcast, hey, by the way, Aaron has a new episode and you should distribute it and tell other people within the Apple platform. Spotify does the same thing. iHeart does the same thing, and everyone out there. So your hosting company is the meat and potato between you and the platform that people can listen to your podcast.
Excellent. All right. Now, so there are so many hosting choices out there. I use Spreaker, but actually a lot of people don't use that one, but I happen to use Spreaker. There are so many choices all over the world. There's these new hosting companies popping up. I mean, it's a new industry. They're just popping up out of control. So what was your underlying motivation to open your own hosting company when in fact there are many choices in the market? Where did you see What did you see in the market that you needed to get involved in?
Well, that's a very good question, by the way. Thank you so much for asking it. I know a lot of people who are in the process of looking for a hosting company, they can truly benefit, and especially your listener who's listening to this. The reason why I started my own podcast hosting company is because, let me take you back to the journey of how I got into the podcast. Maybe that will explain why I started my own company. So about last November, when I started my podcast, prior to that 3 years, I've listened to a lot of podcasters out there, starting from your Tim Ferriss, Gary Vee, your Pat Flynn, and just to name a few, and then all different industry that you could possibly imagine. And then I got to the point that I was listening to podcasts on my way to gym, on my way to work, while I was on car, while I'm editing some videos or whatever that you could think of. I was listening to podcasts. You could fairly say I was pretty much addicted to podcasting. It was like, wow. And then it was a really good experience because there were so many things that I have learned just by listening to a podcast or many different one. And the beautiful part that I like about podcasting is it's multi-purpose. Unlike your book or a video, you have to set aside a time and both of them needs your undivided attention. Unlike podcasting, you can plug in your earbuds and you can either cook, you can go for a walk, and while you're driving, rather than listen to your music, which I believe is a waste of time because it doesn't do anything for you, and most importantly, it doesn't do anything for your brain. You could turn on a podcast and learn, or even if you just learn one good idea that can literally change your life. Having said that, and that's the backstory, and that's when I decided, like, hey, I have so much knowledge that I want to help other people, like other people have helped me to become a better person. So that's when I went into the route. So like, hey, I want to create my own podcast. Creating content was not a big deal, but I'm the kind of person who likes to start a thing and then quickly master it. And then I want to go and start another thing because then I master that. And that's how I continue to grow. And what I found out, the podcast hosting company, the biggest one out there that everybody uses it, as a speaker, your Libsyn, Podbeans, and things of that nature, every single one of them had some sort of a limitation that they will put on you being the podcaster. So for example, if you started your podcaster and your show takes off, let's say you started in January 1st, and your first week, you didn't get a lot of listens. Come next month, February 1st. So in the month of January, the first week you did not get a lot of listens. Second week, you got 1,500 listens. And then by the time you end the month, you got, let's say, 10,000 listens. And these podcast hosting companies, what they will do is, and they are really finicky about making money because they don't care about you. I call them the little devils, if you will. Some of them what they will do is they will tell you, hey, by the way, you can only upload 4 episodes per month. If somebody who's just starting out, that's good. But if you start recording, and I promise you, once you start getting into the podcasting world, you're going to be like so hooked, like I want to create more and more content. Not to mention the fact that you get to meet these wonderful, amazing people like Aaron here, who will truly change your perspective, like how you can, communicate and also build an online network. So once you start doing that, those 4 podcasts a month will seem very, very easy to do, but then you will go over them. And I know one gentleman who I was talking to, he uses Libsyn, and he said, one time he was literally waiting until midnight so that he can upload his podcast, a new episode, because he couldn't do it before midnight because his limitation has reached. So that's one of the limits that the podcast hosting company does. Another one is like, hey, we'll give you unlimited uploads, and then we will limit you on how many people can listen to your show. So some of them like, hey, we'll give you 10,000 listens per month, or we'll give you 20,000 listens per month. If a normal person thinks about it, like, oh my God, that's a lot of listens, 20,000, that means 20,000 people going to listen to me, and that's great. What they don't realize is that's 20,000 listens as a whole. So let's say if you have, 100 episodes in course of 1 year, and then if one of the episode has, let's say, 1,000, and you multiply by 1,000, and then those 10,000, 20,000 listens will add up so quickly, and then you're like, oh wow. Then you will be capped, and then what they will do is, if you want to jump from 20,000 to 50,000, you have to upgrade yourself to another plan. And then there's so many little devils, as I call them, out there where like, hey, if you want this, you got to pay for this. If you want this, you got to pay for that. And I'm like, wow, there has to be a company out there. And I went through all of them, like all the ones that I could possibly get my hands on that I know that are popular. And every single one of them had a limitation. So at that point, I'm like, I got so fed up with it. And I'm like, you know what? Forget it. I'm going to go and create my company. And any podcaster out there who love podcasting and like to have the freedom and flexibility to grow, they can come join my team and say, hey, let's grow together, as compared to, hey, by the way, podcaster, if you grow, I'm going to charge you more money. With us, it's just one account, one payment, unlimited shows, episode, storage, pretty much everything unlimited. That's all. And then at the moment, we are testing out this price point, which is just $30 a month, and that's it. And you get pretty much the whole thing unlimited.
Really, really, really interesting. Yeah. I mean, now it makes sense to me why some of these companies out there, these hosting companies, now it makes sense why they would um how they would benefit from limiting the podcaster. I was wondering, well, what's the point of limiting someone if you're a company that wants to make money off the advertising? And the point of limiting them, I guess, is so that if the podcaster wants to upload more, the company, the host has to then take more money from the podcaster. I guess what it all comes down to is basically kind of a basically pretty, yeah, that's very interesting. So let's go over your company from basically the ground up. All right, so if someone out there in my audience is a podcaster, and actually there are at least three or four of them that are in the group that you're going to be added to after this episode on WhatsApp. But let's say that one of those people does want to join Simple Podcast Cloud. So, okay, what's the price?
Well, like I said, the price right now, the testing we were testing out is just $30. But before you pay anything upfront, you can literally go to simplepodcastcloud.com, and we have unconditional no money ask, where we'll give you 14 days to literally test out the system completely, fully featured, and you don't have to enter in your credit card or PayPal or anything like that. So it's a free trial. You can test it out, and after the free trial, if you like what you have seen and how it uses it, the system is, then it's just $30 a month. That's that straight. No like long-term contract. It's month to month, which is a good thing. So if you decide like, hey, this is working out great, you want to continue to say it, you just pay month to month. That's it.
Right. Okay. So it's $30 a month. Right.
Yep.
So basically a dollar a day,
A dollar
roughly.
a day. Simple as that. That's a good tagline. I'm going to use that. A dollar a day will save you. I'll get your name out there. A dollar a day of marketing. There you go.
Yeah, a dollar. All right, all right. So then, with a dollar a day, someone could have all of these features. So, what are all of the features?
All the features are where you just have one account. You have unlimited shows meaning, for example, let's say January 1st come, you are absolutely passionate about Facebook marketing, right? And then come 2 weeks later, all of a sudden, then you have another passion that will be about, I don't know, fitness or things in fitness related podcast you want to create. And then at the end of the month, you're like, oh my God, now I want to create a podcast show for cooking. So you can have 3 podcast show under one account. If you want, you can have 1,000+ podcast shows. I know people out there who have like 4 or 5 podcast show, and they literally record every single day. That's just like their regular income. That's what they do for business. So that's what it means by unlimited shows, which you can have unlimited shows. And obviously within the shows, like for example, this is your show, Aaron's Opinion. And then within the show, you have episodes that you record. So think of it this way. So let's say you have a bucket. Within a bucket, you could put your, let's say a basket or bucket in which you can put in your apples, as many apples as you want. So show is your basket, apple is your episode. So you have an unlimited episode, and then the bandwidth, meaning how many people can listen to your episode or your show. You have unlimited that. So, for example, other little devils out there who will say you can only have 10,000 listen or 20,000 listen. With us, we literally want you to grow